As a business-to-business marketer, your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles are long and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? LinkedIn ads empower marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful manner. On LinkedIn, you'll have access to and build relationships with decision makers. Of the 875 million users on the network, 180 million are senior level executives, 10 million are C-level executives. You'll also be able to drive results with targeting and measurement tools built specifically for B2B. And they work. Audiences exposed to brand messages on LinkedIn are 6 times more likely to convert. LinkedIn ads is also ranked number 1 for security, community, and ad experience as part of Business Insider's Digital Trust Study. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey there, it's Jason Falls. If your company or maybe one of your clients sells to marketers, you look for advertising channels that guarantee business marketers are paying attention, right? Let me introduce you to the Marketing Podcast Network. You're listening to it right now. It's a network of podcasts all about marketing. So 100% of MPN's audience are marketers. Reach them by advertising on the Marketing Podcast Network. Learn more and find our media kit at marketingpodcasts.net.
I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Tom Höglund.
So we made a massive bet very early to say that the future of content creation is going to be very fragmented. Millions of people are going to have so many interesting stories to tell across platforms like YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever medium you use. And we want to be the solution for all of that.
Tom Höglund is one of the founding team members at Epidemic Sound and has been responsible for several different functions of the company as it is scaled, reaching a $1.4 billion valuation in 2021. Tom developed Epidemic Sound's innovative digital rights model, which paves the way for creators, everyone from YouTubers to small businesses to the world's largest brands, to use restriction-free music to take their content to the next level. Tom is also an early-stage investor in companies primarily geared towards creator monetization and B2C and B2B SaaS solutions. Tom, welcome to On Brand.
Thanks, Nick. Wow, what a presentation. It almost makes me get interested in myself.
Interested in oneself. Well, we try to really knock the bio read out of the park here on the On Brand podcast. Then it's all downhill from there. But
it's definitely going to be downhill from that bio, but I'll try my best.
Well, I can actually somehow we're going to shoehorn your flattering bio compliment into talking about sound-based content. That's obviously a key bit of brand DNA here on the On Brand podcast, but sound is increasingly important to brands, to say the least. But that has a lot of components in this ecosystem. Where does Epidemic Sound occur in that echoic ecosystem?
Well, I would say we're not so much focused on the audio or sonic components as such. Really, what we try to think about it as storytellers, whichever medium you have. I mean, this podcast uses some music in the beginning, the end, and maybe in the middle to create suspense or other things or just recognition. Whereas a marketeer at a big brand that has thousands of retail locations is trying to tell a story about that brand through the music that they choose in store. And then you'll have YouTubers telling inspirational stories about travels they've done. And that's how they use audio. And then obviously mega brands in the world will have sonic logos and whatnot. So what we're trying to do is to look at the entirety of the storyteller community in whichever capacity that is, and see how can we not only help them create the perfect soundtrack for the story they're trying to tell, but also on the legal and administrative side of things, let them spread that story to all of the platforms that they really want to. And I think that's what set us apart from the traditional music industry, which has been very complex with multiple rights holders and licensing across publishers and labels and management teams, and so difficult for a maybe a storyteller starting out that isn't a copyright lawyer to just wrap one's head around music licensing. So I think that's pretty much what we're trying to do. Let storytellers be storytellers, and we'll just give you great music, and you don't have to think about liabilities and copyright law.
Yeah. Because we talk about the importance of music in all of this, and yet for brands of all shapes and sizes looking to do anything, music has historically been a bit of a pain point. Talk a bit about kind of, because I feel like, using music for our brand, I don't, again, it's the copyright lawyer thing. So talk a bit about that hurdle and what your innovative approach to digital rights looks like.
Well, it started out as pretty much of a necessity. We were in the TV production business probably 10, 12 years ago, something like that. YouTube was still pretty small. Facebook didn't really support video. Maybe they did, but not. It wasn't known as a video destination, and neither were any other digital platforms. But we saw something pretty early on, and that was that the big TV networks were all of a sudden trying to move their content online. And for us making TV shows at the time, they were asking us to not only make 60 hours of prime time TV content, they were asking for 200 hours of buzzworthy material to build a hype that they wanted to distribute online. So we went out to all the major labels in the world and the big production music libraries at the time, and we said, "Look, this is what we want to do. We would like to put this online. Could you please offer us a quote to be able to do that?" And they all said the same thing. They said, "What's your budget?" And we said, "Well, uh, you're not really taking any risk here. So we're not really feeling that we have to share a percentage of the entire budget. That's where we're going to have to find our margins as well. So if you can give us a price list, because we appreciate the massive value that music will play in this production, but we would rather just pay according to the price list." And then complexity ensued. So when we thought we were done, we had only cleared half of the platforms we thought we had. And at this point in time, I mean, tablets and smartphones and something called WAP, not the modern meaning of that, but the old meaning, like a first mobile internet solution that we used. They were all different licenses. And once we finally cleared the rights for the TV show and the online content that we wanted to push out to advertise the show before it launched, came the final blow. They said, "Okay, and you can only use this in Sweden." And we said, "Excuse me, what do you mean? We actually bought an online license." And they said, "Oh yeah, we only have the rights to sell this in this specific geography. So you have to hire a bunch of tech people to geo-block all of this content from ever leaking out to any other markets." And we said, "Well, this is just ridiculous. I mean, the internet is the internet. And if somebody outside of Sweden presses play on this specific piece of content, should that really mean that we can get sued? Like this can't be the future of content creation and sharing." And we were just at the time, we were thinking about, wow, these digital cameras are amazing. You can make video now. This is going to change everything. And fast forward just 7 years, everybody had a high definition video camera even on their phone. So we made a massive bet very early to say that the future of content creation is going to be very fragmented. Millions of people are going to have so many interesting stories to tell across platforms like YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever medium you use. And we want to be the solution for all of them, because the smallest common denominator here is probably going to be that almost none of them will be copyright lawyers. So I think we had like a corny analogy back in the day, and that was we wanted to be an ATM machine. And the ATM machine is super simple looking when you walk up to it. Like it's a decent design. There's 10 buttons, and then you just get money out after you press your code. Super simple. But behind the ATM machine, there is a massive networks of agreements between banks in every part of the world, exchange rates, and it takes just a few seconds for them to know that you have money in this bank account somewhere on the other side of the world. They've exchanged the rates in local currency, and the money just comes out. So that was how we were trying to look at it from a product perspective. And obviously, our backend was a legal framework that was very sophisticated to be able to essentially build a parallel music industry that worked easier for what we thought would be the future of content creation.
I love you talked right out of the gate about, looking at all of this from a storytelling perspective. And as you told that story, it was such a great line in telling your own story. You said that complexity ensued. And that sounds, that's so much what building strong brands that mean something to customers in the market. That is a common aspect of that story when there's complexity out there. I think another interesting thing to piggyback on what you just said about kind of being the ATM for everyone, I think it's important to point out that that's not what most would do. Most would see that fragmentation and say, wow, there's the aforementioned complexity in all of these different pieces. Let's own a piece of that. Let's make it easier for the big businesses and the brands, or let's make it easier for the solopreneur creators out there. But to take on everyone was a daunting lift.
Yeah, it really was. I think at the time we were probably too young, too naive, and too unaware of the inner workings of the music industry to really understand what we were getting ourselves into. I mean, it was change is always painful, especially if you're one of the incumbents who's invested heavily into a system for decades on end, and you finally found a model that really works, and then somebody like us comes along from the side and just tries to flip everything upside down. There was a lot of friction between us and the incumbents in the industry, not only record labels but publishers and the collecting societies and PROs of the world. It was very tough at times. I'll say. But at the same time, that wasn't really what was driving us. It was more along the lines of having just having the ability to take a step away from ourselves and see that, look, the entire world is changing. The internet is going to change everything. It's already changed how we work, how we go to school, how we consume media. We were all pretty young and tech savvy at the time, and we saw the industry wasn't. So we said, look, our kids are going to ask us in 20 years' time or 30 years' time. They're like, oh, your generation was so lucky. You were there when the internet was born. You could just be there and you would happen to build a unicorn by mistake because nothing existed. It's going to be a mature market when they're in their 20s, I'm sure, with cutthroat competition across any possible service out there. But they're going to say, you could just start whatever and it would probably succeed because it didn't even exist. And I think that we had the insight enough to see that this is a once in a lifetime technical shift that's in its infancy. And if we don't really try to build something and help in the development of this new technical change, and in our case, it was trying to soundtrack the internet, we'll never forgive ourselves. So we said, okay, let's go for it. And then again, complexity ensued.
On Brand will be right back after this.
Hey there, it's Jason Falls. If your company or maybe one of your clients sells to marketers, you look for advertising channels that guarantee business marketers are paying attention, right? Let me introduce you to the Marketing Podcast Network. You're listening to it right now. It's a network of podcasts all about marketing. So 100% of MPN's audience are marketers. Reach them by advertising on the Marketing Podcast Network. Learn more and find our media kit at marketingpodcasts.net. Hey there, it's Jason with the Marketing Podcast Network. Real quick, I want to make sure you know that the world's leading B2B Marketing Expo is returning to the Los Angeles Convention Center on March 21st and 22nd. It's high time we got back together to learn, see the latest technologies and solutions, and network, right? Join thousands of marketing professionals just like you to learn from over 250 industry expert speakers, educational masterclasses, and over 300 exhibitors. And this year, your ticket also gets you into the Sales Innovation Expo and the Marketing and Advertising Expo. So it's like 3 conferences in one. It's March 21st and 22nd at the Los Angeles Convention Center. Go to b2bmarketingexpo.us to register. That's b2bmarketingexpo.us. The Marketing Podcast Network is a proud partner of the B2B Marketing Expo for 2023. We'll see you in LA.
Now, back to the show. So you are a soundbite machine today because I love the idea too of soundtracking the internet, and I think you talked about a lot of the as all of the growth around a lot of this, and with the advent of video content. And the other important thing to look at is, even when it comes down to, we were just talking about video on a recent episode, and the biggest thing there is sound, and having professional sound, not just the audio tracks and everything else, but the music also. So I think there's something to this idea of soundtracking the internet for brands, and because of that aforementioned complexity, a lot kind of think of it as the third rail. Not sure if it's even something that they should mess with for fear of legal retribution and whatnot.
Yeah, I think as we see it, and most consumers of online media, I don't even think anybody's really engaged with a video without sound or music. I mean, anything that is remotely engaging will probably have a soundtrack, even more so than we ever assumed it was. I think our CEO usually says that video without music is like food without taste. It's like it's okay, but it ain't memorable, and it isn't very engaging. But obviously you'll get the information across. But what we did see when we started out was we started pretty much in the wrong end. We were trying to solve the biggest and most complex licensing issues of multi-territory broadcasters moving their entire catalog of content from linear television network channels to an online portal video on demand service. And how do we solve licensing for all of that? And we figured if we can do that, then we have a product market fit. Everybody will know that the music is good enough for the best like production companies in the world, and everybody will feel pretty comfortable in using it. So we'll do it in that order. Obviously, it was complexity ensued, and we had a couple of years where we were really struggling to push the quality up there where it needed to be for professional filmmakers even to consider us as an option. Even if it was a lot easier legally, They were not even close to being prepared to compromise their artistic integrity by using something that would sound like elevator music. Like, we needed to be up there with the best pop stars in the world. That was the production quality we needed to reach. And then in the meantime, as we grew and as we were soundtracking a ton of the television shows all across Europe at the time, and even big Ryan Murphy shows in the US, which was our like pinnacle of quality at the time, and we were really proud that we could work with production companies like that. Companies started reaching out and they said, look, we're selling let's say a $250 million diamond mining tool here that you just drive straight into the mountain, and it can drill anything, but it's really complicated and nobody wants to read 2,000-page instruction manuals anymore. So we decided to make videos to show anybody in the world how this drill works. And we said, okay, what does that have to do with us? This feels like it's a pretty boring movie. And they said, yeah, well, that's the problem. It's so boring that without music, people are never going to watch it. So we actually need to have some production quality in this video too. So we said, okay, well, that was interesting. If the drilling companies need music for videos about like instruction manuals for heavy machinery, everybody's going to need music. So we didn't pivot, but we and this was the point in time where I actually pitched a lawyer that was so much smarter than me. So I offered her my job. She accepted, and I went over to build a offering for companies that needed music in their instructional videos or like onboarding videos for new employees or whatever it might be. We started getting into the like the corporate and the enterprise space in a pretty big way, which today is completely exploded. Everybody's more or less using video to communicate with current or future potential customers.
Well, and I think the other key thing about the landscape that you talked about in there is important too, because it's the importance is universally recognized. We're afraid of rights and how to manage that, and nobody wants elevator music. I feel like, we may not know exactly what we want, but elevator music is on everyone's no fly list.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, there is no shortage of elevator music out there. You can find a ton of free music, but usually you get what you pay for. So we invest a lot of money every year to ensure that we are a professional music company with a business model that appeals to everyone. That's really what we're trying to do, to give access to the world's best music to anybody who's, I would say, brave enough to be a storyteller.
Oh, I love that. Again, a soundbite machine here on the podcast. Now, another aspect of your work that you focus on is investing in efforts focused on creator monetization. Talk a bit about where we're at. I mean, speaking of, you walking us through the audio and video kind of snapshot of of the past decade's innovations. As we look at the creator space, where are we at, and where are things headed specifically on this idea of monetization?
Ooh, monetization. This is probably my favorite subject in the world, I would say. Even my wife, she owns and runs one of the most successful influencer marketing agencies out of Sweden. So when I come home, it's still everything we talk about. But looking at it from a music perspective, that was the first hurdle that we had to clear when we were thinking about, say, more social media type content. or actually starting in broadcasting. So our hypothesis was that when more and more people can make content, they'll still have to try and sell them to the usual suspects. And the usual suspects would be the big TV networks, and they would make a great piece of content, and they would try to sell it. And maybe they said yes, maybe they said no. However, if they did say no, it doesn't mean that you give up if you're a content creator and you have a dream about telling your story. You'll just try some other medium. So what they would do is maybe cut it up to be more YouTube friendly, and they'll chop it into 12 episodes instead of 6. And then if that doesn't work, maybe you'll chop it up a little bit more, and you'll put it on Instagram or back in the day Vine, or you'll do whatever you can to get the story out there. And our goal in all of this was to say that, look, we know that you're going to make content. We know that you don't have it all planned out how you're going to monetize this from the get-go, but we are going to do everything we can to give you full flexibility to monetize wherever you can. And nowadays you have, and just looking at the video side of things, you have Twitch, you have YouTube. They monetize really well. If you build big audiences, there are already available merch tools that you can use to increase sales. You can do brand partnerships, which you push into the actual videos. So it's a slightly more subtle form of advertising, depending obviously on how you integrate the brand with your content. But there are just so many ways in which you can monetize now. It's like music artists have always been. It's like either you get streams, or you sell CDs, or you do a world tour, or you sell merch, or you do brand partnerships. It's the same, but probably even more for content creators today. The monetization avenues are endless. So we're just trying to keep up to make sure that there's a license for that. And it's, if you're doing a teddy bear to play baby sleep music at home, or selling to your fan base, we'll make sure that there is a license for physical fuzzy animals that can be used and hopefully updated through your Wi-Fi to play fresh new baby sleep songs as you please.
I'm just trying to think if that actually exists. It feels like it could be a thing out there in.
I'm sure Mr. Beast will be launching a fuzzy animal soon.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, certainly with your uncanny ability to soundbite several different complex things, from creator monetization to audio music rights online. You've made me smile many times. Tom, what is a brand that has made you smile recently?
Am I allowed to say the obvious one, but maybe not for the obvious reasons?
Oh, now I'm intrigued. You have to.
Well, Twitter has not only made me smile, but made me laugh out loud many times in the last few days. And obviously not for all the right reasons, but the turmoil, the way in which their new owner is handling this brand, and the blue check marks, and the fake employees exiting the building and then posting videos standing with Mr. Ligman and Mr. Johnson. I've never seen anything like it in terms of one of the biggest platforms in the world.
Oh, yeah.
That it would spiral into this. I don't even know what to call it. Is it a story? Is it a farce? Is it a crash? Is it the opposite? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's like it's definitely a story that's happening, but we don't know what genre it's gonna fit
yeah, exactly.
in. It's gonna fit in.
I don't think it's a comedy, but like with the let this sink in tweets, it's hard not to think of it as a comedy. But at the same time, I feel so strongly for all these people that have invested such a large part of their careers into this brand, and they're just out unceremoniously, and that makes me super sad. And then I look at the conversations between these owners and the press, and it's just mind blowing. It's I don't know what to think, but I've it's definitely made me smile at several occasions the last couple of days.
Well, when people are stumped with the smile question, I always say it can be any kind of smile. You can be laughing because of the joy of something that a brand did. It can be shaking my head. I can't believe they did this laugh. So I think you more than met the challenge with something very timely. Tom, where can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
The easiest way is probably to find me on LinkedIn. It's Tom Höglund, and if you remember that I work at Epidemic Sound, you'll find me pretty quickly. And that is my main source of of online presence and social media. I think that it's a consequence of working so closely with such talented and brilliant content creation individuals that over time, I think I grew self-conscious at some point, and I didn't post that kind of content across any other social media. And now, after years, the moat has grown so big, I don't really know how to cross it again.
Oh, I think I think that's great and well said, and I love the idea of crossing the moat. Well, this is great, and we will link up to everything that we've talked about today over at onbrandpodcast.com. Tom, thanks for being on brand with us.
Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's been a fun conversation.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.